Hey, I had a caller ask me this question. Prove to me that God created the earth. There's many religions invented to control the masses. Yeah, that's true. I had to agree that there are many religions that are created to control the masses. But to lump everything together in existence and blame it on some kind of an elite rule that is created for that purpose is not necessarily true. But I wanted to answer that person's question. Atheists inevitably say, prove to me that something exists. It always comes down to that. You can't prove a negative, because if I was to respond by saying, prove to me that God doesn't exist, then an atheist would say, you can't prove a negative. You're the one saying that there's a God, so prove to me that there is one. That's just the way the debate goes on any subject, just about. Well, the Bible has been sabotaged, and there is a lot of religions out there that are backwards, or almost right, or sort of right, or way off. And I can understand why so many people write off the Bible itself because of the behavior of the people who, in theory, follow that Bible, misrepresent it, or make hypocrisy of it, or whatever else. But, you know, just yesterday I tried walking on water, and once again I fell into the pool. Uh, Fortunately, I can swim. So there's not a human on earth right now that I'm aware of who can walk on water. We all fail. So yeah, I'm making an excuse and I'm justifying the fact that I don't know everything. But neither does the person who called me asking me to prove that God exists. So the Bible has been sabotaged. But then there's Socrates. People will quote Socrates all the time because he was such a great philosopher. And so if I happen to quote the Bible, then they'll tell me that the Bible's been misrepresented, it's been rewritten, it's been translated, it's been modified. The words don't have the same meaning anymore. It's really, really old. Well, Socrates lived a long time ago. In fact, he was almost contemporary to Jeremiah. So how can you take Socrates or Aristotle or Plato or any of those people and rely on the writings that they wrote? I mean, if we say we apply to the Bible the fact that the words are no longer meaningful because of its age and people have sabotaged it, if it's contemporary to Socrates, we've got to eliminate all of Socrates and everyone else. I mean, you got to be on equal ground here as far as logic is concerned, which is where an atheist would come from. But in reality, it's somewhat easy to prove in the physical realm things that exist or don't exist. And to a certain degree, we can mislead people with the physical realm. Like, for example, this. I mean, you might have thought I was wearing one pair of glasses. Well, I was wearing two. My point is, you could deceive people pretty easy sometimes. Or, for example, take my microphone at my radio station. This guy right here, it's not even plugged in. But yet you still hear me. I mean, what is it? Telepathy? All I'm saying is that the physical realm sometimes is can be misleading. But we eventually get there. How do we eventually get there? Well, take, for example, in the physical realm, you got a guy named Samuel Morse. And Samuel Morse takes some intellect from someone else over in Bavaria, I forget. But he creates a telegraph. He tells Congress that he can harness lightning, and eventually they let him. They let him prove it. And in the physical realm, he proves it. And the telegraph becomes a teletype. And the teletype becomes a BlackBerry, which is where we get our text messaging from. But that was based upon facts that we knew in the physical realm. Because AT&T, for example, what does AT&T stand for? What does it mean? American Telephone and Telegraph. I mean, even within the word, you can go back to the telegraph and go, oh, okay, that's where the BlackBerry comes from. Okay, I get it. We're using words and intelligence from a previous generation to advance our intellect in the physical realm. But the spiritual realm was totally different, man. You know, you can't prove the spiritual realm with a physical realm that easily. It's like someone saying, "Here, take this apple and prove to me what an orange tastes like." It's like, well, why don't we get on the same page first? You know. So Moses, Moses writes a chapter called Genesis. That's a book. But in the first chapter of that book, the very first chapter, he handwrites how the physical realm was created. Okay? Thousands of years ago he did that. And then generations go by after. And here we are in the 21st century debating that chapter in Genesis. With all of our science and all of our technologies and all of our abilities and all of our knowledge, compounded daily from all generations since time began. And we still can't disprove a negative. We still can't even find fault with what the man wrote, Moses. Really? If you get right down to it, I challenge you. I challenge you to prove whatever to me about creation. Just handwrite on one page how the physical realm was created and all that is in it. And then I'll ask you to prove it. Compare that to the paragraph that's written in the book of Genesis, before the internet, before the typewriter, before the first text messaging BlackBerry, before the teletype. But you could use all your tools. Just handwrite it on one page. And then let's discuss it and see if there's any fallibility to it. If you could do that, I'll grant it to you. Otherwise, you need to consider that there's more than just one chapter in the book of Genesis. The bottom line of all this is, with that caller, is that if you want to talk about the spiritual realm, then we can discuss proving it. It's easy to do. I'll show you. Ready? Get it? I just breathed. And Genesis says that God breathed into man the breath of life, and he became a living soul. End of story. That Hebrew word, telegraph? No, wait a minute. That Hebrew word, breath, could also be interpreted as spirit. So when I do this, that is my spirit. And when I die, my spirit goes back to God, according to the Bible. That's an interesting concept, too, that we haven't been able to discover. I mean, I know someone who saw her dead brother because he appeared at the foot of her bed. I know someone who was abducted, or says they was abducted, more than once. I'm sure you know people who have seen ghosts or may not have seen ghosts, or you may know someone. There's a lot of it. There's some people who have seen UFOs. There's some people who have seen aliens. There's some people who say they've seen an angel. There's some people who say they've seen the devil. I mean, there's devil worshippers. Okay, so just take all of those people, at least one of them, just find one of them, and line them all up. Okay, and go interview one of them. Like interview my friend who saw her brother at the foot of her bed. Okay, are we going to discount that? Just say, no, that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. I can't prove it. Or are you going to go, what is that? Since I don't know what it is, it doesn't mean it's not real. But there's a way to figure out who that person was and whether or not that person was actually her brother or not. There's a way to figure out about that UFO, if it was built by man or if it was built by some alien race. There's a way to figure out whether or not that alien is sinful. There's a way to figure out whether or not that alien is even alive. There's something in it, but we don't know that it's the breath of life. can't prove a negative, right? Anyways, that's my challenge to you. If you can write on one page, handwrite on one page, how the physical realm was created, I'll read it. But if you can't, then you need to keep an open mind and start reading in Genesis and finish in Revelation and talk to me along the way. Okay? It's a deal. Have a good day.